It's very, very normal in any sport to point to the offense, except baseball when you see dominant pitching, and that's part of their stat line. But the stats in basketball do not in any way reflect what somebody does, really, the defensive end. Yes, you can get steals. Yes, you can get block shots. By the way, LeBron James had 4 block shots last night. I mean, just amazing. He ends up with 36 points, but here's what's interesting about it. The first half was really a lot like a pickup game. No one getting in the other's way, and LeBron had 29 points at the half. So if you look at it, when you end up with 36 points, you start with 29, you're like, man, he didn't play that well in the second half. Right? He didn't do that much. He ran out of gas, if you will. But that's not actually the case. I've told you this before. I will continue to tell you this. The cliche in sports is defense wins championships, right? Offense wins games, defense wins championships. And I think never is that more the case than with the LA Lakers and, frankly, with the Los Angeles Clippers. What's remarkable about LeBron is not the scoring. 29 in the first half, ends up with 36, has 5 assists, has 7 rebounds. By the way, Anthony Davis, 26, 15 boards, 6 assists. And kind of interestingly, for a guy who is a very, very good shot blocker in his own right, doesn't have a block shot. But that doesn't, whatever. Rondo came in and gave him 21 points. Kyle Kuzma was better with 14 points. And they beat the Rockets going away by 10, 112 to 102, outscoring the Rockets in the fourth quarter by 10 points. But what's interesting is when I ask you why they won, most people would say LeBron James. And you go, well, he had 36 points. That game changed in the second half when the Rockets scored 38 points total after scoring 33 and 31 in the first 2 quarters. In other words, defense does, in fact, win games, this one in particular. And while I'm not being critical of LeBron, I'm actually telling you he played great, but I think he played better in the second half than he did the first. But it's really hard to convince people of that when he only, quote unquote, only scores 7 points in the second half after scoring 29 in the first. Does that make sense? Like, this one's a hard one to pick up on, but I mean it because I believe it's true. The Lakers are built on their defense. Yes, they need LeBron and Anthony Davis and, frankly, Kyle Kuzma to give them 70, 75 points. Which, interestingly enough, right, you have LeBron and Anthony Davis collectively score, 62 points? Kyle Kuzma gives them 14 points. There you go. There's your 75. That was their plan to start the year. But if you're watching, like the game is playing right now on NBA TV, the difference is in their defense. And LeBron's a huge part of that. But what happens is when we try so incredibly hard, to do all of these things, try so incredibly hard to do all of these things, like, for example, prove LeBron's greatness. Like, I'm following Nick Wright. I like Nick Wright. He's a good friend of mine. He loves LeBron James, and he points out the points and what he can do. And, like, dude, that's not the amazing part. The amazing part is, what can you do when you're not scoring in basketball? That's actually the gift of LeBron James. He could end up, if he plays long enough, as the all-time NBA scoring leader, and I don't actually think that's what he does best. And in terms of pure offensive games, the numbers look good. Was 6 of 10 from the line. That seems to be a potential issue there, as he just does not look comfortable at the free throw line. But it's all of the other things in totality. The consistency, as he's now the all-time playoff wins leader. Should be pointed out that first-round series last longer than they used to. Should be pointed out that he hasn't skipped a year. Now, they did miss out on the playoffs last year, obviously not this year. But when you go to that many NBA finals, granted only winning 3 of them, you're going to play more games. More games mean more wins. More wins gives you the title of most playoff wins. So there's a little Derek Jeter in terms of stat accumulation to that argument. But at the end of the day, I think it's inarguable that when LeBron played his best last night, it had nothing to do with his offense, had everything to do with his defense. And his defense is spectacular. Not because of the block shots, but because of the activity, the leadership, the rotations, and how he motivates others to rise to his level defensively. Because if you look at it, Russell Westbrook had 30, James Harden had 33. So there's actually not any difference between LeBron James and Anthony Davis in terms of the scoring. And people would point out Rondo and Kuzma, and okay. But to me, what made last night special is LeBron James actually took over the game with the help of Rondo at the defensive end. That's how the Lakers and most teams win a championship. That's what separated him. But the points, the numbers, that kind of distracts us. And we think that's the way in which, you make your name. But if offensive stats were what really mattered, then James Harden's the greatest player ever, right? Then Giannis Antetokounmpo is far and away the best player in the NBA. He'll win the MVP this year, but he's not the best player, and they're home fishing. This was Frank Vogel talking about the defensive effort in the second half.
We just returned to form in the second half. We knew we weren't happy with how we defended in the first half, and came out and gave a gutsy, scrappy performance in the second half. To hold that team to 38 points in the second half with all the firepower that they have is really a strong performance. So I'm proud of what we did.
This is Vogel talking about LeBron's dominating performance.
The lift he gives us with the superhero plays, you can't really put it in words, but he was doing it on both ends. I think he had 29 in the first half. We didn't play any defense in the first half, so this easily could have been a blowout if he wasn't hitting big shot after big shot. He was spectacular with that, but when he's protecting the rim and then scoring 30 and a half, that's just remarkable.
Yeah, it is truly, truly remarkable.